You know what? I'm getting too old for this. I cannot go on splashing in the water indefinitely. I'm Dorothy Wilhelm, and this is the Swimming Upstream Radio Show. We like to talk about the fact that on our shows, you will meet people who are doing wonderful things all over the world, people that you won't see on the 6 o'clock news. And today we have something really special. I've asked my friend, Sandra Solon, the Crafty Canadian, to bring herself and not her gallbladder, who is not. And it's going to be a little different. Usually Sandra talks about crafts and things like that, but today we are going to talk about how to inspire yourself. You know, the things you want to do and you just can't work out how to get started, or can it be that you just don't feel as good about yourself as you'd like to feel? And so, we got some ideas. So, Sandra, how are you? What's new? What would you like to say? Start at once.
Well, coming up to a Merry Christmas, Dorothy. I'm feeling pretty good. I did have my gallbladder removed last week, but I'm just being really slow. I've had my slippers on for a week, and my husband's helping me as much as he can because he decided to have pneumonia at the same time.
Really?
So it's a fun household for a few days, but it's nothing that's contagious. So we're having our family Christmas dinner tonight. So everybody can just get on to do what they want to do, and we are not contagious. So
that's
we'll
what just so
yeah, so, we'll sit in the corner and love everyone and throw food at them.
That's a good idea, sure. Well, but now, so it must have been kind of a low point to have surgery and your husband's not feeling good either. What do you do to inspire yourself when you find yourself in a situation?
I don't watch a lot of TV. So when I have downtime, all the old black and whites come out. I've got Alec Guinness, I've got Woody Allen, I've got all box sets of all the old movies. And then I try to just draw something that I got because I'm an artist, and if my fingers aren't moving, then there's something wrong. I always feel like I have to be creative. It's a little bit of a little thing when people say, "Oh, you're so creative. Oh, you're so talented." You have this inner voice saying, "Don't waste it."
No.
And it's actually it can be quite heavy, a burden sometimes. And I'm not Michelangelo or anyone famous, but you still have that inside of you. You have a talent. You have something that you want to share. Now, how do you motivate yourself to actually do that? I think
that's what we're going to talk about. But our first hint was to watch an old movie. Tell me one movie that you would be able to watch and get something out of almost every time.
Oh, it's going to sound really funny, but 3.5 hours of Gone with the Wind. Oh my, the hairdos and the dresses and the whole, there's everything in it. There's love, there's war, there's hate, there's crime.
Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, exactly. That's that. I can say that line over and over again. It still has the same punch.
So that's really good. So you also would add some kind of an actual craft or something that you have to use your fingers. My sense listening to that was not so much that it mattered that it was very creative, but that you were actually using your fingers with your brain. And
that's what it's all about with me. I do a lot of textual art. I work with string and wool. And I was always a really fidgety kid, really fidgety. And of course, they didn't have a title for it or medication for it or anything else. So we were pretty well, I mean, you just kept busy, and then that kept you kind of under the wire a little bit. Nobody paid much attention to you because, oh, there's Sandra over there doing something. She must be all right.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good. Now we were talking about how you get out of a blue time, or like, having been there with the your husband not feeling well and you feeling minus a gallbladder. What can you still do? You said you're going to have dinner with your kids tonight.
We're going to have dinner with the kids. And we're just going to take it really easy. Again, my kids are adults, but the little ones, we have all kinds of games that we play that are very simple. They don't require anything. I've got straws and pom-poms. And if you can imagine blowing the pom-poms across the top of the table to get into a cup. And then whatever is in the cup or the number, you get a corresponding prize to go with it. So we have lots. And I'm the youngest of 5. And we weren't in the middle income market at all. So we had homemade gifts and homemade fun. And I still carry that through. I like to have homemade fun.
Well, give me some examples of homemade fun.
Well, I'm actually making, and I know I'm not doing a craft today, but I got to show you these little. Sure. I've been weaving paper.
Oh.
And they make little pouches. They make little purses.
Cute.
And I mean, they're so much fun. And all it is a couple of pieces of colored card paper, and I've cut them into strips. So that I've been doing 4 strips because I did one that was 12 strips. I don't know if you can see that properly. And it's really, really difficult. Don't try this one.
Don't do that.
But these ones are easy. And I'll just bring it down here a little bit. So you just, weaving them in and out. So this one will go through and then it'll go over. And then as you go along, of course, you're going to end up with the finished product, which is here. And it just takes maneuvering, but it takes both sides of your brain. And that's what I think a good craft is supposed to do. It's supposed to take up your whole brain so you think about it. And then, of course, once I finished this, I just made I made this border a little bigger, and one is.
I like that.
Isn't it cute?
It
and
is.
I use some tougher paper, some stronger paper here. And you can get all these instructions on the internet. No worries.
What would you look for to get the instructions?
I don't know. That's a good question. Weaving paper, I guess. Yeah. But you can see that, and I mean, these are really pretty, but the hard paper was harder to do because it's not as flexible. And we were talking before the show about your son having a different memory, a distorted memory. And, I had a dream all my life, all my childhood and into my adulthood, that I was standing in a barn and I could smell fire and the horses stampeded past me, but they never touched me. I could feel in my dream, I could feel the hooves and all the dirt, and it was like slow motion. Well, I found out about 4 years ago, and now I'm 66 this year. About 4 years ago, my sister, when I was telling, my sister, I've got this terrible dream that comes up. She goes, no, that was real.
Really?
There was actually a fire in the barn. And as the little kids ran down to see the fire, of course, I'm the smallest one. I was there last. Well, the horses ran past me to get away from the fire. And everyone thought that I was a goner because there was 20 horses that jumped through me, around me, and not one horse hit me. I stood still, which was probably to my benefit. But those horses knew, even in their fear, they knew that there was somebody there that they didn't want to hurt. So it's kind of funny that those things come up that you think that are so vague and it's just a dream, but it was actually something that really, really happened. So I thought that was a good story. Yeah,
that's a good story.
Yeah.
But I got nowhere to go with it.
I don't know. It's just when you think of things like that, think about how many other stories like that are good to share. And also I think that as we get older, those stories, and we know from history, if they're not written down, they get lost.
That's exactly it. That's what we really have been talking about a lot, is that it isn't necessary to write a pretty, like a picture book or whatever. If you just have the facts, I've done a couple of interviews here with people that didn't have a family, and so there would be nobody once they were gone that would know. And I think most people don't realize, I just think this, that if you do your life story, you can send it to the Library of Congress. So it becomes part of the national history. Now they can decide whether they want to keep it or not, but they are interested in people's histories. So I think that's a good thing to know, especially. I think it's true that if you have your family, probably what they think is most important to you. But a lot of people have said to me, "No, I want people to know what I did. I want to feel that it mattered that I was here."
Yeah. And I think it's so important with all the AI and all the manipulation that we have with the internet, and things can be changed that aren't true. And now we're finding we have a whole fantasy world out there as well. Here in Maple Ridge, we have one of the top repair cafes in our country, in Canada. And you bring all your old things and such, but they also, and then the people fix it, of course, broken toaster or whatever, or a sewing machine that needs a little bit of help or whatever. But they also have a corner for stories. And that's where I shine, because I don't think a lot of kids, my kids, yes, for sure, but I don't think a lot of kids have actually seen anyone knit a sweater or sew a dress. You know what I mean? Like those skills, they were so ordinary. Like we never had store-bought clothes because we couldn't afford them. Now you can afford store-bought clothes because the material and the machines and everything are so expensive, and no one knows how to use them. So, we're in that transition point in our civilization that we need to hang on to the things that truly matter, and the other stuff is fluff, and we can get along without it. I'm pretty old school.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more interest in knitting and not crocheting so much. And I think it was because crocheting, you have to do an awful lot of work to see any results at all. It was just, but I once had, I think, the largest collection of unfinished sweaters in the whole history of the world. When I was expecting a baby, and I was always expecting a baby, I would knit, and I would go to, there were knitting magazines, I suppose there still are, and I would pick one with a really interesting pattern. But the trouble is, the interesting pattern was always only on the front, and so then I couldn't possibly do the back, which was plain. And so I only had fronts. And, it never even occurred to me that, well, it would have been better to put the two fronts together even. So I guess it's what we used to say in the business, think outside the box.
That's right. Well, it's funny you say that. My sister had a couple of unfinished sweaters. And so I took them over because I used to love to knit. I don't anymore because my daughter is way better at it than I am. But I'm left-handed. So you can see the line where I took over the sweater because I twist the thread through.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I wasn't going to undo the whole thing because she had the pattern all done, and mine was just the straight knit down the front. So, but you can see right across the top where Sandra took over, because that's the left-handed thread. Yeah.
But I guess the lesson there in inspiring yourself then maybe would be to take up a hobby, a craft or something that people don't do anymore.
Well, and to make it easy, you had a guest on a few years ago that was a author, and what he said inspires me to this day. He said, as simply as, I put the name of the book I hadn't written yet on the fridge, and every day I saw the name of the book that I hadn't written yet. And I know that he's been successful writing that book.
Remember who it was? I don't.
Oh man, I wish I could. It was a lovely gentleman. And it was probably 2021. It was right in the middle of COVID when we were all saving ourselves with our bored and frustration on Dorothy's show. Wonderful. Yeah, but he said, I had an idea for a book, but I just couldn't get it started. He said, so I put the title of the book on my fridge under a magnet, and and it's as simple as that. Just to remind yourself, you don't have to finish the book. You just have to start it.
That's really great. And I don't remember. That's really super. But,
I'll try to look it up. But yeah, he was a very interesting, and he had developed a few books at that time. But this one, it was all about statistics and such, which I can't imagine anyone really
wouldn't have been run.
And I'm really sorry, I do not recall his name. No.
Well, maybe somebody. Maybe he's still listening.
Maybe he's still listening. But the way that he said it, as simply as that.
I like it very much. I agree. Yeah. That's really great. So what about here we are, we're really busy and we're not able possibly to get everything done. And you need to keep inspired. I don't watch, unless I'm on, I don't watch TV much. Now, I had a friend here in the dining room. She said she hadn't turned her TV on for at least 5 months. So she gave it to one of the young servers there and I thought that was terrific. She said, oh, and the young woman was so thrilled because she didn't have a TV and she was so happy. But It seems like people are reading more. Why do you think that is?
I think it's less of a distraction. I think TV is very distractive. So when you're reading a book, you've got your own characters. You know what the heroine looks like. You know how the handsome young man is dressed, and you have all that. It engages you more. In TV, it's just kind of laid out for you. And so your imagination doesn't change the color of the sweater or a little bit of, the backdrop or how the characters sound. Because when we read a book, we always get that little,
true,
and we get biases towards the characters with how we're feeling and how we perceive them. Whereas on TV, of course, it's right in front of your face. You don't have that. You don't have that amount of engagement, I think.
Okay, so what's our hint about TV? Our hint about TV is don't watch it.
I think it's a great babysitting tool.
You don't want your kids watching TV. That's the one thing. Now, I will say, the Muppets have been very, very instrumental in our lives. As you know, my youngest daughter turned out to be a ventriloquist, and she's works with that kind of little puppet. So, but in general, we did have to put the kids in front of the TV when we were at Fort Campbell, because I had a little one and a new one and a 3-year-old, and well, you just had to do. He kept going away, and then he kept coming back. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing when you've got so many different ages. What's going to entertain one will not entertain the other one, for sure.
But in general, then I guess for our tips, one would be that you make your own entertainment. Do you think?
Yeah. I know almost every kid that I went to school with, we made plays, and I was always the bumblebee. And because I'm the youngest, I don't really remember how it went. But I would get shoved into the middle of the living room from behind the curtain and say, "You're the bumblebee." And that's a lot of fun for kids too, play acting and things like that. And to get them engaged physically as well as mentally.
I think that's a really good idea. I think to kind of resuscitate when I was young, and before that, the big thing to do on holidays was for the kids to give a play. And it was because there was no TV, there was no radio, there was so the kids gave a play, and it was a lot of fun. and everybody got to, either one of the older kids would be in charge of it, or maybe, who knows. But it was just a lot of fun. And of course now, because you can't come up to the standards of TV, they don't try. Most people just don't try. They don't. That's a sweeping comment, but I think it's true.
Yeah.
You've got to. It's like, for folks with Parkinson's, it's very important to sing. I'm actually taking singing therapy, because you lose the muscles in your throat eventually, and you will have no voice. And of course, for me, for anybody, that's desperately bad. But for me, this is what I do, But every time, and I have friends who, could need that kind of help. And the first thing they all say, "Oh, nobody wants to hear me sing." Well, that has nothing, probably not. That has nothing to do with it. I mean, everything has to do with what you are gonna be doing.
Yeah. And remember that everything that comes out of your mouth went through your brain to get there.
Maybe.
Mine is kind of unfiltered, but and like you said, it's the motivation behind it. Oh, well, nobody wants to hear myself singing. And you're right, that's not the point. The point is you need to hear your singing.
And you need to do it, because it actually singing energizes you too. So I guess the point would be, look around for those things that you can do that will really make a difference. And now we see that the 2-minute thing is up. So I want one big inspirational thing you can always count on.
Tell yourself what you need to do in the right language. If you need to do it, you're going to think it's a chore. If you want to do it, it's going to be a pleasure. And that's what I go, well, I don't really want to do the dishes, but boy, if I didn't have dishes to do, I'd be pretty sad. Well, so that was my grandmother's big quote, because she lived through the Depression and the, everything. She was 100 a couple of years ago. And that's what she told me. She said, just be thankful you've got dishes to do.
I love that.
When I do the dishes and I'm in the kitchen and the house is quiet, and you can reflect on, all the noise and the laughter and the good food, that brings it home for me.
Well, I'm going to make an effort to make this little list of things that we've talked about. So if folks want to, when they go to, either we'll send them out, or usually Jason very, very efficiently puts it all together, and we'll put the ideas with it, and then they will receive them, or when they will be refreshed when they go to turn on the thingamajiggy. That's the professional name.
That's right.
So if people want to get in touch with you, my dear, how do they do it?
I'm Crafty Canadian Studios at gmail.com.
And when are you starting your book?
Well, that's interesting. I'm going to read my sister's book. She sat with an old lady, an old lady. We're all old ladies. She sat with a neighbor and wrote down her family stories and all of her recipes. So I'm going to read that one. But, I think it's really important. I think it's important for us to, especially people that do handcrafts and have those skills that do become lost in today's life, but they're not irrelevant. They are very relevant, and they have to be taught, and that knowledge should be continued.
I think so too. I think that's great. And as always, it's been wonderful fun having you with us. We have, as I always say, this is a production of the SOB Radio Network. SOB stands for Spunky Old Broads. And all the hosts are women past 50. Some of us are way past. So Happy New Year, and we'll see you again next time. I'm Dorothy Wilhelm.